Hey guys, today I'm doing another what if video, and this time it's on what if Yajirobe actually trained after Dragon Ball and into Z. Okay, well, this one's an interesting one because Yajirobe, when he was introduced, he was holding his own against Goku. Yes, Goku had just been in a fight with Tambourine, he'd just been beaten and he was hungry. But needless to say, Yajirobe, a character that we knew nothing about, someone that has only trained himself, unlike all the other powerful fighters at this point. We've got Goku, Krillin, Yamcha, all trained by Master Roshi, even though Yamcha did train on his own, but he wasn't at that same level. But all three of us trained by a martial arts master, one of the strongest fighter on the planet at that point. Then you got Tien and Chaozu, again trained by Master Shen, again another one of the strongest fighters on the planet. Then Roshi and Shen, they were trained by Mutaito. So what I'm saying here is all these great fighters, they were trained by another great before them. They have worked, but they have had someone to show them the way. Whereas Yajirobe, he's had no one. At this point, he's come into the series and he's stronger than Krillin basically, who was, as we all know, the third place martial artist at that point. He had just come third or fourth in the world tournament. So that's an impressive feat. And after Yajirobe's fight with Goku, Symbol appears, one of King Piccolo's children, who is as strong as Tambourine. Tambourine that killed Krillin effortlessly. I mean, there was very little effort put into killing Krillin. Even though he put up a good fight, Tambourine was just toying with him. Then when Symbol comes to actually fight Yajirobe, Yajirobe he defeats him easily. He throws a few shots and Yajirobe starts to avoid these blasts that Symbol's throwing at him. His speed is just remarkable, something that none of the other characters, bar Goku and Tien at this point, have shown that feat of speed. None of them can compare to that, and Yajirobe is doing it effortlessly. And then he just cuts him in half, he cuts Symbol in half. He avoids every single blast and gets close and slices him with his sword. Now, he's assessed the situation first, he sussed out what his opponent were doing. So not only has he got speed and power, he's got this sense of tactical genius. Like, to an extent, he is like what Tien is, assessing what he's doing, assessing what his opponent is like before he goes into battle. So now we've got to look at what would happen if Yajirobe actually did train. Okay, so we all know that he climbed Korin's tower with Goku on his back, and he did that effortlessly. He climbed it so quickly, quicker than what Goku did when he first climbed the tower. Then when he gets to the top, he could train with Korin. He could try and catch him like what Goku did and what Master Roshi did, but it'd be pointless. Yajirobe is already past that stage. So what he could do, he could go with Goku and drink the Ultra Divine Water. But, as we know from Goku, there is a downside to this. Goku was the only fighter, or the only person, that actually drank this Ultra Divine Water and lived. You need to have a pure heart, and Yajirobe did not. He was selfish, he only cared about food and what would get him by day to day. So that is why he didn't train. Or that is why he didn't drink water. But we've got to think what would happen if Yajirobe had trained with Goku before he went off to fight Piccolo. So we'll say that Yajirobe trained for a day or so with Goku. He actually trained with him instead of Goku rushing off to fight Piccolo. Bear in mind that we'll forget that Piccolo was about to kill Tien at this point. We'll forget that. We'll act as though that happened a day later. So Yajirobe, he's just a bit weaker than Goku at this point. He's just a bit weaker than Tien. If he trained with Goku, he would have got stronger. He would have sussed out new strategies, and he wouldn't have been as much as a coward really. Goku would have rubbed off on him and had that effect as he does on many other people, as he did on Krillin when they trained together. Then he probably would have gone with Goku to fight Piccolo, so he wouldn't have been alone. Well, he wasn't alone, he had Tien, but Tien was useless against Piccolo, let's be honest. Despite being the World Martial Arts Champion, Goku had surpassed him in the space of a couple of weeks. Yes, this is because he was a Saiyan, but it was also because of the Ultra Divine Water. Okay, so moving on. Yajirobe would be he'd be stronger than Tien now, just from that day's training with Goku. Just that little bit push him over the edge. He wouldn't be able to compete with Piccolo, no chance. So he'd just leave that to Goku. And hopefully, well, what I'd say is because of training, Korin would ask Kami to take Yajirobe with Goku. This is what I think, because he was such a big help to Goku. So the two of them would go to the lookout and they would train together. They would go through that intensive training. Yajirobe, he wouldn't back down with Goku's positive influence. As we saw, Yajirobe, he didn't even want to take Goku to Korin Tower. He didn't want to go there at all. But because of Goku's influence, the way that he talked to him, he managed to convince him. He managed to get him to go up and even carry him. As such a selfish person like Yajirobe, Goku managed to talk him into going with him. And this just proves that he is capable of it. He is more than capable of becoming such a strong fighter. And if he went through all this training with Goku, the same kind of training that he went through for the 3 years leading up to the next tournament, he would have become incredibly strong instead of staying at Korin Tower and training with the Z fighters when they briefly went up there. He got quite a bit stronger training with the 4 of them, but nowhere near as strong as what he would have got to training with Goku. If you think about it this way, he would have worn those weighted clothing that Goku wore as well, so his speed automatically, that'd get miles quicker, and he'd also get a lot stronger. It'd be different training to what the Z fighters faced in that year before the Saiyans arrived. So he'd go through this intense training with Goku, and plus that, this would also help Goku improve as well. Having that extra, well, that training partner, someone that was pushing him to the next level, rather than just working with Mr. Popo. Goku would become stronger, and Yajirobe would become stronger. To the point where the battle with Piccolo Jr. The battle with Piccolo Jr. would be a lot easier for Goku. But Yajirobe did compete in this tournament. Like, a lot of people just forget about it because he was knocked out by Hero or Kami that was in disguise. But I don't think he would have been. If he'd trained with Goku, he might not have known that it was him, or he might have, like Goku did. It's hard to say, but I think he would have known who it was, and Kami would try and make sure that they didn't fight, or if they did, I think Yajirobe would win. To be blatantly honest, I think with this training, he would be stronger than Kami, he would be faster than him. Because Goku was clearly stronger than Kami as well, and if Yajirobe went through his same training, of course he would be close to Goku. He wouldn't be as strong as him, but he would be somewhere around his level. So if he goes through this training, he'd beat him, he'd get to finals, he'd fight Yamcha, he'd win easily, I like Yamcha. I think he went through a lot of tough times. He's an excellent fighter, and he is massively underrated in my opinion, mainly because of the Cyberman incident that we all know. Moving on, Yajirobe would then go on to the next round. He would fight Piccolo. he would put up such a good fight. He'd hold his own. Well, as we saw, Piccolo fought Krillin in the first round, and Krillin put up such a good fight until he knew that he couldn't win. Piccolo was struggling with Krillin. Or if you get to Yajirobe, someone that is nearly as strong as Goku, then you'd just be able to see that Piccolo would have to go all out to try and defeat him, and he wouldn't like it. He'd resort to some extremes, and Piccolo would win. He would defeat Yajirobe, and this would just make Yajirobe annoyed. He'd want to go back training, and he'd want to get stronger to prove that he was up there. He was a strong fighter. But Yajirobe, his attitude would be different from what it was in the original timeline. He would be a lot more determined. I mean a lot more. I think that he'd go back up Korin Tower, he'd train with Korin again, and then he'd just go, alright, I want to go back up and train with Mr. Popo again. And he'd carry on this training for 5 years until the start of Z. You've got to think how strong he got just in the 3 years. Yes, Mr. Popo wouldn't be giving him as intense training as what he had before, but it'd still be something else. Yajirobe would be going under intense training to get stronger. He'd be trying to push himself to get stronger than Goku. And by the time that the Saiyans arrive, well, Raditz arrive, Yajirobe would probably be about power level of 1000, I'd say. So, more than twice as strong as Goku and Piccolo. He wouldn't be able to beat Raditz, but he'd be up there. He'd definitely be in the league of his own. Then obviously if he's on Korin Tower or the Lookout, he wouldn't be able to get down to Master Roshi's island in time to help. It's just impossible. He wouldn't be able to get there in time to help Goku and save the day. Well, he wouldn't be able to save the day, but Goku would still die. That's what would happen. Goku would still die and go and train with King Kai. Then the other Z fighters, they'd go up and train as normal. They'd all go up to the Lookout and train with Mr. Popo. And this extra bit of intense training, this would make Yajirobe the strongest Z fighter again. He would have a power level of about 3000, I'd say. Because the others, they stopped a couple of months before the Saiyans arrived. They trained for roughly 10-11 months and then went off to finish their training on their own. Of this, I think they messed up here. If they'd carried on for that bit longer, they would have got that much stronger, maybe enough to hold their own against Nappa. But Yajirobe himself, he would carry on training right till the very last day. He'd get some sensu beans from Korin, and he'd go down to the battle. So when the Cybermen first come out, Yajirobe would have a sharp sense of what was going on. He'd see that this Cyberman was about to attack Yamcha, and he'd slice it in half. He wouldn't give it a chance to kill him. So this means that at this point, there'd be 2 extra fighters rather than Yamcha being dead and Yajirobe messing about with the press. So there'd be 2 extra strong fighters there. All the other Z fighters would be stronger because Yajirobe would have that bit of encouragement on them during their training. So let's say all their power levels get boosted about, say Yamcha 2000, Krillin 2100 and Tien 2200. Chaozu would be about 1900. So they'd still be a lot stronger, but they wouldn't be a match for Vegeta and Nappa. Yeah, so now Krillin, he'd wipe out the rest of the Cybermen as easily as what he did. So that's it. They're gone, and the battle with Nappa starts. I think Yajirobe, when the others stopped training, his power level would be about 3000. But he carried on training that extra 2 months, pushing himself to his limit, his confidence soaring, knowing how strong he's become. then I'd say that he'd get up to about 3,500, maybe 4,000, and he definitely was a tactical genius. He knew when to go into battle, he knew when to stop, and he just sussed his enemy out. He didn't have any attachments like the other Z fighters. Yamcha with Bulma, Tien with Chaozu, Krillin with Goku, Piccolo with Gohan, and Gohan with basically all of his friends. He didn't have that sense of I need to protect them. He'd want to fight. He'd want to kill Nappa and get the glory and prove how strong he actually was. So he'd go into this fight with Nappa head on. He'd be holding his own and Nappa wouldn't like it. He'd get frustrated, he'd start getting reckless, and that would give Yajirobe a bit of an edge, and the other Z fighters, they'd help him too. So it'd be all these strong fighters against Nappa. Every time he'd go for a blow, one of them would be there. So Nappa, he gets defeated. Just because of Yajirobe's strength, he'd be overpowered. Because of the teamwork and the tactics that Yajirobe brings to this fight, they'd be able to defeat Nappa. But this is where things start to go wrong. Vegeta comes in and he straight away target Yajirobe. That's it. He's gone. So then Vegeta would kill Yamcha, kill Tien and Chaozu. He'd beat Krillin, who would then say, "You'll be sorry," when Goku appears, kind of like what he said in the normal anime. Then this would pique his interest. Krillin would tell him that Goku was stronger than all of them put together, and then he'd wait like he normally did. He'd give them half an hour. Bearing in mind that this is a bit later on than what would normally happen, because the fight, it would have been longer, just because it had made it more difficult for Nappa, and then Vegeta would have to get involved. Now the fight dragged on. Then Goku gets there before Vegeta's time limit runs up, and the fight begins. Goku, Vegeta's battle carries on as normal, but this time Piccolo is still there. This is a vital part of the story, that Piccolo is still alive. So the fight would continue, literally as normal. When Goku gets knocked down, Piccolo would join in the fight. He wouldn't leave with Gohan and Krillin. He'd carry on fighting. These three have not had the same beating that they did in the original anime. They're still pretty much full strength. They've not had to battle much. The only one that actually got beaten was Krillin, and Goku sorted that out. He gave him a senzu bean. But Gohan didn't get a Zenkai boost from fighting Nappa. So that's interesting, because he wouldn't be as strong when he goes to Namek, if he goes to Namek. Well, the fight continues. Goku, Vegeta, it continues the same, and Piccolo gets involved when Vegeta starts to get the upper hand. Then he turns into a great ape when he starts to struggle. Bear in mind, Yajirobe is the one that cut off his tail, and he's now dead. He starts stomping on everything, destroying the planet. Then he kills Piccolo. Piccolo is gone. And Gohan, he sees this, and like in the anime, he goes mental, this time with Vegeta. He tries to take on this great ape, he blasts him, and while they're fighting, Gohan is actually putting up a bit of a fight against this great ape. While Vegeta is distracted with his fight, Krillin comes in with a Destructor Disc, cuts off the tail, but this time Vegeta falls on Gohan as he gets transformed back into his normal self, crushing the child. But Goku had extra senzu beans. He's Tekken 1 himself at this point. He's up. He goes over to Gohan and gives him the last senzu bean. So they're all fine. Vegeta gets up. Now Goku had his Zenkai boost, back to full power. He defeats Vegeta, leaves him battered and bruised, but allows him to leave as normal. Well, now, this time they need to go to Namek again, but Goku travels with them straight away. But Goku does ask for the same spaceship that he travelled in. He asks Bulma's father, Dr. Brief, to make the spaceship, and they will wait a few days until he can build it. This will help him, Gohan, and Krillin all train in this intense gravity, and they will all get incredibly strong when they arrive on Namek. Okay guys, this has been the first part of this video. As you can see, just having that little bit of Yajirobe training, having him actually train, it would make a massive difference to the story. It would actually be a massive help to the Z fighters, and they would all become a lot stronger. It would change the story. But in my opinion, it'd be for better. It'd be a lot easier for them to fight when they get to Namek. But we'll see what happens in part 2. Thanks for watching, and like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed it.